Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I oppose the plebiscite because it's costly. I oppose the plebiscite because it's divisive. Most importantly, I oppose the plebiscite because it's ineffective. A plebiscite will, just as the previous speaker indicated, lead to a then parliamentary bill and parliamentary motion. The previous speaker also indicated what we all know. There is a majority of the Australian people support marriage equality. We know that that's the case. It's acknowledged that that's the case. It is overwhelming. And it is now the case that a majority of House of Representative members and senators, including the current Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition, all support marriage equality. We should get on with it. We should get on with it and do our job. The previous speaker also spoke about the conscience votes that we have had in this parliament on this side of the House, even though there was no conscience vote allowed from those opposite. And the fact is that a few years ago, there was not a majority of the parliament. When I was elected in 1996, the priority of same-sex couples was certainly not having the right to marry. There were a range of other reforms that had a practical impact on their lives that were much higher up the agenda. Those issues were dealt with by the former Labor government when we amended some 84 pieces of legislation on superannuation, on health, on migration, on social security. On all of those pieces of legislation, they passed this parliament without rancour, without opposition, and without creating division in the community. When they were first raised, they were controversial. When I first raised in my first term of Parliament the same-sex superannuation entitlement of same-sex couples bill, that was a controversial issue. There wasn't even unanimous support within my own party. People, when you spoke about sexuality in this place, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. It is now the case that there is far greater tolerance, far greater respect for the fact that we are a diverse community. And what this campaign for marriage equality is about is unfinished business. And the second term is really important here, the term of equality. That is why the plebiscite is so wrong. We decide in this House social security, taxation arrangements, infrastructure policy, health policy, education policy, defence policy. We determine that. Why is it that this one issue is being singled out? And we know that it's all about an attempt by the opponents of marriage equality, including the former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, to stop marriage equality. That's why this was put up within the coalition party room, opposed by the current Prime Minister and many of those opposite within their party room when it was put up. And we on this side of the House are supposed to be bound somehow by the fact that Malcolm Turnbull rolled over on his own principles in order to secure the Prime Ministership by guaranteeing that he would adopt the same policy as his predecessor, Tony Abbott. Well, I actually thought Malcolm Turnbull was better than that. He has a proud record of marching in the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras in his electorate, of standing up genuinely on these issues. I know that he is an opponent of discrimination on the basis of sexuality. And that's what makes it even sadder, the fact that he is prepared to take the position that he has, knowing the consequences that it will have for division in the community, for same-sex couples and their families, which is why they are so strident in their opposition to this. I believe very strongly that we should have a vote and a determination in this parliament, and we should do it sooner rather than later. Some of the best debates I've been involved with in this parliament have been conscience votes on controversial issues like voluntary euthanasia and stem cell research. They have been respectful debates. They've been the parliament at its finest, where people have thought about each and every word that they were going to contribute to the debate. I've been in a minority, it must be said, on those debates. But they've been respectful, and they actually have been, I think, debates which have raised the standing of this parliament as a result of them taking place. So that's why what I see as the way forward. In the last 20 years, since I've had the honour of sitting as a member of the House of Representatives, there has been extraordinary advance made. Advance made removing discrimination on the basis of sexuality. And marriage equality will be not the final step, but a significant step. The debate, of course, about removing discrimination isn't just about laws. It is about the way that people conduct themselves in our community. Right. And the fact is that now, if you engage with young people, then they wonder what the big deal is here, what the issue is here. Certainly the ones that I speak to. Because what we're talking about here with marriage equality won't affect anyone's existing rights, simply extends a right that exists to some people who have been previously denied that right. It won't affect anyone's marriage. It will indeed strengthen the institution of marriage by allowing more people to participate in it. It won't require churches to do anything against their will. It simply will provide equality for everyone before the law. And when it's all over, just like has happened in most of the industrialised world now, in the United Kingdom under the Conservatives, in New Zealand under the Conservatives, in many of the states of the United States, in Canada, in many of the countries of Europe, the fact is that people will wonder what all the fuss was about. People will just get on with their lives. And that is why the Prime Minister really should show leadership on this. Marriage equality does come down to issues of tolerance and respect. And I believe that tolerance and respect needs to be held by all people who participate in this debate, both the supporters and the opponents of marriage equality. I've been very much on the record for a very long time as a supporter of marriage equality, but also a supporter of the conscience vote, because I understand that for some people of faith who regard marriage as not a civil institution that's governed by laws and legislation, but as something that is a sacred institution handed down from God, then I understand that they have a different view, and I respect their right to hold their view. That's why in any of the legislation that has been drawn up by people such as my colleague, the now member for Whitlam and then member for Throsby, Stephen Jones. It included religious exemptions, and that was something that is supported by the gay and lesbian community. So I think in terms of a conscience vote of this Parliament, which would allow people who have religious convictions, who don't want to choose between that position and the position of civil law making, then a conscience vote allows that to occur. It ensures that the Parliament is able to be respectful. But it does go both ways. And the truth is that the families that I've met with through organisations such as Rainbow Families are genuinely and legitimately concerned about the implications of a divisive debate. The member previously quoted the member for Barton and her contribution last night. Well, I live now, due to boundary changes by the Electoral Commission in the electorate of Barton. I got material in my letterbox during the election campaign, a marginal seat, which can only be described as targeting Linda Burney because of her Aboriginality and her religion in a way that was offensive and divisive and backfired on those people who distributed that material. And there are absolutely legitimate concerns that those families have. I am yet to have a same-sex family in my electorate ask me, not one, ask me to vote for this legislation that's before the Parliament. And I have my own views on it that happen to accord with that view. With my gut instinct was always to oppose the plebiscite, because we as parliamentarians have a job to do and we should do it. But we do have to be very cognisant of, as the Smiths said in a great song, "What difference does it make?" They said, "Heavy words are so lightly thrown." And that is one of my concerns, reflects the view of that great songwriter Morrissey when he said that, because words are thrown around in a debate which we know from some of the comments that have been made already in this debate will be indeed very hurtful and will create needless division. And in terms of the fact that the government intends to publicly fund this debate as well has, I think, been even more reason to oppose this legislation. The fact is that we could knock this over this afternoon by having a vote of this Parliament. Could go to the Senate tonight and they could deal with it. And then next week we just get on with business. This is an enormous roadblock to the government getting on with other business indeed, because its insistence on this divisive plebiscite is standing in the way of the promotion of harmony and unity that this Parliament has an obligation to pursue. We can see that there is a great deal of distrust of elected representatives playing out in areas such as the US presidential election, What we need to do is to lift standards of public discourse, lead the community in promoting respect and inclusion, have marriage equality, have it through this parliament.
I thank the honourable